Good evening, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Janice Luke. I'm here with
April
and
Capri,
we're
how
the
are
abundance.
we?
We're good. I'm trying to do a little bit different.
You trying to
And we're
do
the
what?
Abundance Tree Podcast.
Abundance Tree
That's
in
it.
the house.
We in the house. Once again, y'all. Once
Did
again,
you have
y'all.
something to tell me?
About what? Uh-oh.
Hey, happy birthday to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Off seasoned with love.
Best season and ever. Happy beautiful birthday to you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You
Thank
are
you.
so welcome. I
Oh,
had to get you one time.
I need to give you a hug. I don't know how to do it.
Virtual hug. Oh wait, how do we do
Virtual
it?
hug.
Virtual
Virtual
hug.
hug. Thank you.
You
Thank
are
you. I
so
appreciate
welcome,
that.
girl.
So I hope you're doing well.
I'm doing great. I'm doing
Awesome.
great. Happy to be here as always. About to bring
Absolutely.
out our guest.
Yeah. So do we have?
We have a visual artist, a storyteller, content creator, speaker, and a coach. With her journey through purposeful content creation spanning over a decade and inspired by stories of resilience, she embarked on a mission to empower individuals share their voice through storytelling, both in businesses and personal lives. She believes firmly that our human connection is woven from the stories that we share. And in every story, there also lies the power to influence, inspire, encourage, and empower others. Her mission to unleash change in the world, one story at a time. We have Miss Amber Larkins,
Right.
amazing individual.
Absolutely.
I'm excited.
Me too. Hey, Amber. I always
Hello.
say, show, always like, show it off. Hey,
Hello.
Amber. How are you?
I'm good. I thought I turned my camera on before I signed on, but I guess Zoom doesn't work that way.
Oh, that's
No worries.
okay. We have this
You
thing
know,
that we tell our
technology does
guests.
what it wants.
Yeah, we always have
Right.
this thing when we tell our guests, show yourself, so it happens to everybody. But it's all good. Thank you so much for coming on with us.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I love being here.
Absolutely,
Absolutely.
absolutely. So tell us about your like non-traditional story or your journey or wherever you want to start. Tell us about you.
Yeah, so where do I start? That's always the question, right? I so I in school was got into fitness because I was super duper skinny and I was always really self-conscious of my body. And I got into the fitness industry and started competing, doing fitness competitions, and did that for about 5 years, put on a whole lot of muscle. And then kind of life happened and I quit competing, but I was still really engaged in the fitness industry and tried to look for ways that I could get back involved into fitness without doing the competitions. So that led me into photography. And photography was a passion. I've always been a very artsy kind of person. I love art. I love expressing myself through art. And photography was something that I found that I really loved. And I started photographing athletes. It just fit. I always had these visions to portray. I was intrigued by the human physique. And I think maybe like what I had seen was possible through doing transformation in my own physique, but just really always intrigued by this. So I started shooting fitness, started working with athletes, and started doing a lot of fitness photography. And what is really crazy, this is where things kind of took a turn, was I was working with athletes and they would start to share these stories with me. Stories about transformation. A lot of them had used fitness as this thing of like fitness saved my life. I was addicted to this and then fitness saved my life, or I had had a horrible accident and then I found fitness, and or I had overcome great odds. And I was very intrigued with the mindset thing that come along with this and the mindset of these athletes that I was working with. And I started really praying for a way that I could showcase these stories that I was being told. I'm like, these are inspirational. They would inspire a lot of people, but it's not fair that I'm the only one getting to hear this. So I started putting it on my social media, and I just didn't feel like that was enough. And I always felt a pull to create a bigger platform for these types of stories. So I fast forward had started my own, my own photography business. And what's crazy is that I'd started working with athletes, fitness influencers, and things, but also these people had businesses. So it's kind of led me into this like branding type business type photography that I added. But this idea of telling people stories and helping people get their voice heard never left me. Like it was always a like an underlying passion that I had. And so I did this for years, over a decade. I was photographing fitness and I was photographing branding type photos. And a lot of that overlapped in the fitness industry, from food prep to personal trainers to, supplement companies to all kinds of things. And it was a great experience. I got to do an amazing work in several retreats, photographing retreats, which was also amazing, wellness, health and wellness type stuff. This was a great experience, but about a year ago, I really started to feeling the pull to start a podcast. And so I started a podcast called Through the Trauma. And this kind of derived from doing photography. I had started these photo sessions that was just a passion project. I didn't advertise these a lot. When people would contact me with these stories, I'm like, hey, I offer these sessions called Transformation Through Trauma, where we photograph your trauma and then we photograph your triumph. And I was able to tell people stories artistically and very inspirational, intuitively. And so the podcast kind of was born out of that. And it's funny, I was just talking to someone earlier today, and I'm like, I didn't plan any of this. It just was a journey. It was like putting one foot in front of the other, trying to figure life out. And through it has been very, very fulfilling in so many ways.
Wow, that is amazing.
Wow.
I love that. Wow, I love the progression of where it all started. How it started with you just in the fitness industry. I don't know, were you bodybuilding or like was a bikini showing or
So I got involved in this before bikini was like a thing.
oh
So
really? Okay.
back in those days, I was doing figure competitions. So it was bodybuilding, but they had just added the figure division, which was like a not women bodybuilding, but it was like the level down.
Mhm.
Now, if you follow any of that, figure is like the middle. Now they've added several other categories, but bikini is like the one that's you really don't have a whole lot of muscle. You just really tone. But these girls really do have a lot of muscle if you see them in regular everyday life.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it's crazy. I got involved in it before. When I was doing the competitions, there was still two suits. Now there's just one, because there's so many girls that do it now that they can't, but back then they were bringing us on stage twice. But my last show was in 2005. So
Okay.
that I don't care to tell my age here, but
That's
Well, I
amazing.
absolutely love, love the concept. And like
thank
Janice
you.
was saying, the progression, because it started from a negative self-image of self. Like you said, you were felt you were skinny. Like I had the opposite problem, girl. I was heavy in school, right? So I was always the fat girl, and it does kind of mess with you as a kid. So it started with that. Then you got into photography, and then you kind of connected the two while helping others, and you just found out that you were passionate about it and you grew that. So I really love that, and I'm proud of you for doing that, because I think especially as entrepreneurs, they say you got to find your passion, But everybody's passion doesn't work for them. And I think you found a way to make that work. So I just wanted to give you your flowers on that. I think that's so
Thank you.
cool.
Yeah,
Thank
it's so
you.
awesome because it's like whenever you mentioned that you started to photograph their trauma and like in a creative way, and then kind of tell their story through the photographs, I believe, right? Where it's
Mhm.
a trauma and then their triumph or something, and then
Yeah.
it gives them a voice to kind of work through that and work and come out on the other side into their triumph, and you are able to do that in a creative way through photography. That's just amazing. I mean, I love that.
I
How
do
that
too. What does
brings
that
about.
do for them when
Yeah.
they see it?
Yeah. I'm sorry. What did you ask? You asked me what that did for them?
What does that, when they see it, because pictures are forever. So like,
Mhm.
what does that do for them? Like, what are some reactions that you've gotten once they see kind of like the
Yeah.
chronological progression?
So I learned a lot through doing these sessions, through working with people. The first thing that I learned is that I have to be really careful. I luckily hadn't never had any like bad experiences. I was not a therapist. And so I realized kind of early on, I cannot just tap into someone's trauma if they're not ready.
Mhm.
Um, so I really tried to get a therapist to come work with me. But because this was a passion project, I didn't have a ton of these projects happening. It never really worked out to get a therapist. So I learned quickly how to kind of navigate that. Um, not, I would like qualify people. And I would let them know, like, hey, we're going to kind of tap into those emotions. Like, I don't want you to, are you at a place in your trauma journey where you can talk about this? And I've had to turn people down before, like, no, I don't think you're ready to share this. But I learned a lot through that. But I will say the people that I have, I'll tell you the very first girl that I did one of these sessions with, we're friends to this day. It's funny, she had reached out to me on a model call because I was photographing a fitness athletic wear, and she wanted a bunch of different sized models. So I was like, hey, I'm doing a model call. I've got a client that needs all these different body types. We need 5 girls. And I just kind of put like what we were looking for. And I had a ton of people reach out. And I was like, okay, I'm not making the decision. I'm letting the brand make the decision. So they picked the 5 girls, but for every girl that didn't get chosen, I emailed them and I'm like, hey, you know what? I'll do a very discounted session for you if you're interested. And this particular girl reaches back out and she's like, well, I'm a model. I don't need you to do any photos for me. Like I'm in photography school myself, so I get a lot of photos. But read my story. It was very bizarre. And I was like, okay. So I go read her story, and it's all about how she had lost her daughter. Her daughter was, I want to say, 13 months old and had a very rapid form of cancer. And they
Oh,
found out, I want to say it was like within 2 weeks, they found out, and then the little girl passed away.
oh man.
And when I read her story, I'm just like, oh my God, this is the kind of stories I want to cover in my transformation through trauma. Like I'd already had this idea, this vision for it, but I didn't know who I would get to photograph, right? So it was bizarre how this all happened. So I reached back out to her. I'm like, hey, I have these new sessions. If you would be interested in, trying it out, we'll just do a trade. Like we'll just do a trade. And she's like, okay. So I bring her in studio. At that time, I was subcontracting through a studio where there was other photographers that was doing a lot of baby stuff. Um, so they had a lot of the maternity clothes and a lot of like, it looked very much like a nursery in there. And I brought her in and it's so strange that I had this vision beforehand and it was very intuitive. And I just felt like, why don't I photograph her holding a cloud? And we'll light the cloud and it'll be in a dark room and the cloud will like illuminate her face. And so very nervous, and I told her, I said, hey, why don't we do this? And when I told her, she said, oh my God, she starts crying. I think she started crying. I can't remember honestly. But she said, oh my God, when my daughter passed away in my arms, I could see her. I felt like she had ascended into the clouds. And I got
Wow.
cold chills. And even to this day, I get cold chills talking about this. And she, after we did the photo shoot, she has taken those pictures every year on the little girl's birthday. She'll share the photos. And she's told me, we've done interviews since then. And she said, this was the mommy and me session that I never got to have with her. So
Amber, I've
this
never cried on this show. Don't listen. I have not cried on this show yet. And I'm so sorry to cut you off, but listen. You said that I just caught what you said about the pregnancy stuff being in the studio, and you didn't know that the pregnancy stuff was in there.
I knew it was in there,
Okay.
but we were able at that studio, like we subcontracted with like five other photographers, I think
Got
was,
you. Okay.
and
I
so
thought that was just like
everybody,
all by coincidence.
that wasn't by coincidence. I mean, it was by
Okay.
coincidence that I just happened to be partnering in that studio with four other photographers, and one of them happened to be a maternity and baby photographer.
Got you. So it was kind of, oh wow, that's so
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. So
Oh.
it worked out beautifully, and little things
Oh,
like that has happened along my entire journey that has let me know. I mean, I believe in God, and I believe that God has directed my path. And I look at even that situation, and me and her are friends to this day. We've I have made so many friends through through my business and through my journey of photographing, and now we're switching models from not just switching business models, not just through to do photography. We're doing more content creation at this point. But still, it doesn't change the people, the client, the avatar doesn't change. I become friends with my clients.
That is so powerful. I mean,
it
I
is.
just can't fathom. I mean, it's so needed. That's like it's a form of therapy. I mean, I know it's not. I know you don't claim to be like a therapist or anything, but I kind of feel like it is a form of therapy for people to kind of help release the trauma. They kind of go through it and able to deal with it and kind of embrace it and then have a release of it, and through what you're doing. And it's so powerful. I don't know what to say. It's other than it's so powerful to help people that way.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you kind of are more content creation now. Is that through your podcast now, or is that other forms of content
Mhm.
creation?
So this also has been a kind of random thing that has happened. Um, it's weird because I had a friend tell me a couple years ago, she's like, you're doing all these things and I don't see how anything connects. And I'm like, as an entrepreneur, you're always like, she's just kind of right. Like, how does all this connect? So I started asking the question. I believe that everything we have is inside of us. Like, we just have to find it, right? And so I'm like, yeah, she's kind of right. Like nothing. So I started praying about this, and I started meditating on like what I read this book. Let me back up and say this. I read this book early on in my entrepreneurial journey called Visioneering, and it's by Andy Stanley. And he said this whole premise of this book, it was foundational in my life. And the whole premise of this book was that everything that you do in your life points you to your destiny. And even if it doesn't feel like that, or you don't see how it relates at all, point you to your destiny. And I clung to this message because I'm like, I do believe in life we have purpose. Like all of us have some form of purpose, and we're here for a reason. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here anymore. Um, so with that, I was like, how does how does this all fit together for me? I started the podcast a year ago. March was a year. Started the podcast.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
A happy anniversary.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
So in the year mark, I'm doing season two. So we're starting season two. I think we got three more episodes, and then we're starting season two. So it's exciting stuff. But I started this podcast, and now I lost my train of thought. I'm like, where was I going with this?
Oh, so
But
sorry. You were
no, you're fine.
saying
You're fine. No, no, no. I can catch back up. I'm like, I don't remember where I was going with this, but the crazy thing about this whole journey has been the podcast derived from the transformation through trauma sessions, which I do think is I believe that photography is one of these things that if you look at an image of yourself in a power stance or in a powerful aura, the photo is very powerful. It does give you a sense of power. It's empowering to see that. And I believe that photos are very powerful in the sense of you can take your you can take that emotion and of trauma and you can say this is some place I don't want to go back to, or this is a feeling that I have that I can release, but this is where it got me. So everything in my life has happened not to me, but it's happened for me. Everything that has happened has got me to this place. And so I remember I was going this down. So the content creation part has been this. When I started the podcast, it was to get people's voices heard. That was my only thing. I'm like, I just want to get people's voices out there. They have these impactful stories. Let me just get these stories out there and create a platform for that. The business side of things was I felt guilty monetizing my podcast a little bit. So I'm like, well, how can I create a business that's going to feed my podcast? And the content creation, it's weird how this has all come full circle because now it's like I can use content creation and production to help the guest that come onto my show further their message and further their voice. So when I bring on therapists or doctors or specialists or coaches or authors, we actually have a marketing, my business has a marketing system to get their voice heard more, to grow their thing, whatever it is that they're doing. So I feel like when I look back over the last, 5 years or whatever, since I've really gotten serious about this journey, I'm like, it seems to all fit together, even though back then it didn't fit together, but now it does. So my heart bottom line is just that I feel like as one person, we can only help, if we're working with someone one-on-one, we can only help them this far. But if we help them share their voice, then we can impact how many people? Because now that person is impacting how many people, and then everybody there impact. It's like a
The cycle.
ripple effect. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Totally.
so great. That's so wonderful how you're helping. I think it's needed because you're like therapists and authors, doctors. You said that the guests that you have on, they are probably not as familiar with content creation and social media. So the fact that you're able to bring that to them and help, I guess they can leverage your audience as well to help them build out their platforms. That's so powerful. That's such a great business model. But I have to disagree a little bit what you said about how you mentioned the young lady that said it doesn't really connect. What you're doing doesn't really connect. But I kind of felt it did because you were describing how you took the clients through like this whole like they kind of relive the trauma in a way through the photographs and they have the release, but everything just seemed to fall into place the way you were describing it. It just happened just to fall where it needed to be for that person, and to me that was a divine connection. So
I
what
think so too,
the way
actually,
you
when
were
you said that.
describing it. So I really think that from the beginning of your journey up until now and even beyond, I think God is all over it, and it's just so amazing to hear it. I mean, I'm just in awe right now. So, you know, your
Thank you.
flowers to you, and thank
Oh,
God because I can see God in it all the way. So,
thank
congratulations.
you.
I definitely resonate with everything Janice said. I'm feeling the same thing. My eyes literally still watering from
Oh,
that
So,
lady's story about the baby and just how, like she said, like God is all over it. Just how, things just kind of happen sequentially and it may seem chaotic while you're actually going through it or like it's not actually leading anywhere. but the path has already been paved. You just haven't made it all the way down yet.
Yeah.
So I'm so excited for your journey, and also grateful for all the people that you're helping with this, because I agree too that photos do carry a lot of energy, and for me, they kind of trigger memory, like kind of like when you hear an old song or something like that, it just kind of takes you out of where you are and puts you back to where you were. So seeing the progression, for your clients, for them to see their progressions from when they were, maybe in a darker space to now, your smile hits different when you're happy and you're glowing and stuff like that. So,
Mhm.
so to actually see that, I feel like just has to be so incredible and impactful for them. So you're definitely doing God's work out here.
Yeah,
Oh, thank you.
I
Thank you.
agree. Yeah.
I I think it is a hard thing. And this was the difficulty I found with doing the transformation through trauma sessions. And maybe I was I quickly started doing the podcast, and I don't want to say that like I've left them. I will still do a transformation through trauma session. I just don't market them. I
Yeah,
don't really try to market them. I feel like when people's ready, they'll come to me. Um, and God will bring them to me.
gotcha.
But I do think that that there it's hard. The challenge is when you bring people into a project like this, it's really hard to have them really understand that the the trauma part of the photo shoot, it's hard. It's
Mhm.
emotionally hard. And feeling an emotion is hard. As humans, we want to stuff emotions. We don't
Yeah,
want to feel them. We want to avoid them. We find things to negate that feeling. And so I feel like when you're forced to not forced, but you willingly force yourself um to feel those feelings again, it can be very difficult. And I think that that's one of the things that I saw, and trying to communicate that to clients that we are going to put you back in that state so that we can capture those real emotions. But there is something releasing about it. There's a book that I recently read, and I don't know if you guys have read it. It's called Letting Go. It's by I want to say David Hawkins. It's one of the best books I've ever read on emotion, human emotion. And I think it should be a prerequisite in schools. Like I think
really. What's
schools
it
should
called
teach it.
again?
It's called Letting Go
Letting
Letting
by David Hawkins. And he talks about this, like just sitting in your emotion for a moment, feeling that emotion, and then releasing it. And I found success. I think foundational is having an awareness. Like I'm feeling angry, or I'm feeling mad, or I'm feeling sad, or I'm feeling depressed, or whatever you feel. You first got to have an awareness. But once you realize that you feel that way, being able to sit in it and then let it go is powerful, because it's different than stuffing it or putting it in a compartment far away that's going to eventually come out as a trigger, or it's going to manifest in some way.
Right. I,
definitely,
I,
yeah.
I could relate to that too because I know that through my trauma, I I'm in counseling. I've been in counseling for 2 years now, and I'm currently in counseling still for my trauma. But early on, when it was closer into my journey, into my healing journey, I was getting triggered like on my job and things, and so it was things going on where my when I was being triggered, I didn't know why I was getting my feelings were coming out the way they were, and everyone triggers different, but I didn't understand why it went from A to B so quickly, and so when I went back to my counselor, she explained to me, well, that's PTSD, and that's just how your trigger is. And she told me about a book called The Body Keeps the Score. I don't know if you heard that book. So
I've heard it
and
many times.
yeah, and
That
so
book comes up the most on my podcast.
oh, does it really? Yeah.
Yes.
So
Mhm.
I haven't read it through. I think I may have read chapter one, but I've been working through through my counselor and everything like that. But it is so, and I don't go through that a lot anymore, so I'm able to kind of deal with that. But that I can just see that's freeing. How you really got to know that the person is ready because that is very difficult. Because I know firsthand that when the trigger happens or whatever, it's very scary because you try to keep it under control and you feel like you're not in control in the moment. and you don't know what to do. And so it's just, and so if someone's really ready, then it's so powerful for them just to, like you said, sit within and be able to release that and just let it go.
Mhm.
So I really admired that.
Y'all make me want to start a book club because I'm the feeling stuffer. I'm like you said, Amber, like I'm trying to stuff it in the back of the back under something. I don't like dealing with it
Yeah.
at all. So you guys make me definitely want to check out those books.
Yeah. The
Absolutely.
Body Keeps the Score it's a difficult read. I thought it was
Really.
difficult. I'm an empath and
Me
it was
too.
really hard for me to read because he tells stories in that book that are very emotional. And when you feel other people's emotions, like being able to hear those things, it's very emotional. I had to read it in
Yeah.
sections and then put it down and then come back and read it.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh no.
but it's so
Maybe
profound
I need to
because
start with the other one.
yeah, that one's a much lighter read. Much more informative. But The Body Keeps the Score it's very informative as well though, because it explains how those emotions can manifest into sickness, triggers, all kinds of things throughout our lives. And if we don't, like, health is, it's like an infection. I heard it like this. If you have infection in your arm, right? You can put a band-aid on it and someone brushes up against that, it's still going to be sore. It doesn't, the band-aid just, it's a band-aid, right? But if you actually dig out the infection, well, that hurts. It's really painful, actually. But that's the only way to get rid of it. And I think that emotions are similar, very similar to that.
That makes
Wow.
sense. That makes sense. So
Definitely some gems.
yes, absolutely. So when you're working with the client, and you feel like they may not be ready, as you mentioned earlier, are they typically in counseling, or do you recommend that they go to counseling to help, or you just
Man,
don't know? Do they disclose that to you?
I mean, sometimes people do.
Hmm.
I personally believe everybody needs therapy. We're
Yeah,
human
yeah,
and we live in a very imperfect world, and things happen to us and we don't understand them. And we've held on to things since childhood that we don't understand. We're triggered and we don't know why we're triggered. So I
hmm,
think that everybody needs counseling in some way, shape, or form, and they need healing.
absolutely.
But people have different views. But if I could have a coach and a counselor in every area of my life, I would.
Yeah,
That's how valuable I think it is.
I
Yeah,
agree.
so much negative stigma against like against counseling. Like you're looked down
Mhm.
upon like, oh, are you crazy? It's like, no, like you said, like I'm human. You can't know everything about everything all the time. And it definitely helps to have that outside, educated, professional perspective kind of, put you back in
Mhm.
check sometimes, because it gets heavy out here.
Yeah, it does. Absolutely,
Yeah.
it does.
Yeah. And you want to be healthy and you don't know what you don't know, right? So you got to navigate through life. And if you can have an expert that can help you navigate that, why not?
Absolutely.
Totally. I'm so excited and happy that you are helping connect just regular people, people that have dealt with trauma, people that may just be watching your podcast with experts and professionals, because everybody may not either have the means to get counseling or just, the knowledge of how to do it. So the fact that you're putting it out there is amazing. And I wanted to ask you, because it seems like you started early with entrepreneurship. Do you have any like advice for any like early entrepreneurs or people that's been in their own business just to keep going and find direction with their business?
Matt, I would say the best piece of advice I have for people is find your purpose, find your why, and get really, really clear on those things. I wasted so much time in my entrepreneurial journey because I was overthinking things because I
Mhm.
wasn't clear on that purpose. I wasn't clear on what I was doing. And I was kind of a jack of all trades. So I did a bunch of different things. And there's nothing wrong with that. Trying things out, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work. That's great. But I think if I could go back and tell my younger self something, it would be like, first of all, find validation in yourself
Mhm.
and search within yourself to find the thing that really moves you, and then run after that with your whole being.
Absolutely. Yes.
That was perfect. Yeah.
And drop the mic, get the fire in the chat, y'all. That's awesome.
Fire in the
Yeah.
chat. Where can people find you, Amber? That's my sister's
Um,
name, by the way.
oh, thank you. Well, we're actually undergoing with my business, we're undergoing a rebranding right now. So we're even in between websites. So I can't send you to a website, but I can send you to my Instagram, which everything is under Empowerography files. It's like empower and then ography, like photography, Ography. Empowerography
Love it.
files, Files. And then you can also find me through on Instagram, _Amber_Larkins. And then everything else, TikTok. I do have a Twitter, but I'm not as active on. It's not Twitter anymore. It's X, right? Um,
The same thing to me. I think everybody's gonna like forever call that Twitter.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I am on YouTube. So YouTube is mainly my podcast episodes that are done through video. So those you'll find those on YouTube. My podcast you can find on anywhere really podcast are the major platforms, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and some other places that
Awesome.
podcasts are heard. So, but yeah, my heart is just to get the message, get as many people's messages out to the world, positive messages. We want positivity
Absolutely. We're so glad you came on with us. And your podcast name is Through the Trauma, right?
through the trauma. Yeah.
Awesome. I love it. We're
And I
so
love
glad.
Empowerography. That name
Yeah.
yeah. I
Oh,
love that.
wow.
Thank you. When I was photographing athletes, it was photography. So
Oh,
that was the name. And that's really what a lot of my past clients know me as is photography files. But it we outgrew that. So we
right.
do a whole lot more than just fitness now.
I love it. Kind of like the X Files, but you're the Empower Underfield.
That's right. That's
I love
right.
I might have to jump to the computer and have a session with you, one day.
it.
Yeah. Yeah, girl.
That's awesome. We're so
I'm
glad
not
you
ready
came
for
on
I'm
with
one of
this.
those not ready people.
What's that, April?
Not ready.
You're not ready?
Not ready.
I might be
Oh,
getting
you know what?
started.
You take your time because time does. I mean, I always tell people if you're not ready, you're not ready. When you're ready, you'll know it. You'll
Yeah,
feel it.
absolutely. I
Amen.
agree. Thank you so much for coming on with us tonight. It was an honor. We hope to have you back
Absolutely.
soon for some
Yeah,
updates.
thank you
Yeah.
for having me. You guys were awesome. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much. And you guys make sure to check out Amber's podcast.
Yep. Thanks for listening, y'all. Have a good night.
Thank
Okay,
you.
bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.